bring some up tomorrow, John.
Microphones are really good.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are now live. Apologize for the wait. You may begin your meeting.
I'd like to call to order the Thursday, September 3rd, 2020 Planning Commission meeting. Let's start off with roll call, please.
Chair Dennison.
Here.
Vice Chair Catalano.
Here.
Commissioners Dallas,
Here.
Hutt,
Here.
Pevsner, and Spears.
Present.
All right, next up is approval of the agenda.
I'll move that.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next up is approval of the minutes of the August 20th, 2020 Planning Commission. Are there any edits or changes requested?
I have none.
None for me.
Line 69, should guidelines have read design review findings or just findings?
Make that edit. Are there any other recommendations for changes? I'll look for a motion to approve with the edit.
So moved.
I'll move.
Second?
All
I'll
right.
second.
All right, motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion to approve minutes with the recommended edits carries unanimously. Next up is the council liaison report. Is the mayor here to make a comment?
I do not believe the mayor is present.
All right, next up, if somebody would put up our slide, is community input. At this time, any person may address the Planning Commission concerning an item that is not on the agenda. The commission welcomes your participation. When addressing the commission, please begin by providing your name and address for the record. Please keep comments to no more than 5 minutes to assure an orderly and timely meeting. Copies of the agenda are available online. State legislation limits the commission's ability to take action on specific requests. Government code also limits the placement of items on the agenda for action 72 hours prior to meetings, except for specific findings. No action or discussion may be undertaken by the Planning Commission on any item if not posted on the agenda, except that commissioners or staff may briefly respond to statements made or questions posed by the public, or a commissioner or staff liaison may ask a question for clarification or make a brief report on his or her own activities. A commissioner or the commission itself may provide a reference to staff to report back to the commission at a subsequent meeting concerning any matter, or may direct staff to place a matter of business on a future agenda. Are we looking for the contact info to put up?
I am.
Vincent, if I could get my screen shared.
Yeah, it just popped up. There's a little arrow that I have to do. Okay, you should be able to pull that up now.
If you would like to provide public comment, please call the number that you see on the screen. We'll give it a minute to see if anybody calls in.
Chair, at this point, nobody has called in for public comment.
All right, let's just give it a little more time. Sometimes it can take a little bit to get into the call. All right, if somebody does call through or is in the process of calling through, if you just go ahead and let us know, then we will switch gears and listen to the public comment.
Understood.
We will keep going with the first item, public hearing. Consideration of Planning Commission Resolution 20-11, recommending to the City Council the adoption of commercial uses list and an ordinance amending Chapter 17.08, 17.36 in its entirety, Chapter 17.40 and Chapter 17.60 of Title 17 of the Sierra Madre Municipal Code. Consideration of Planning Commission Resolution 20-12, a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Sierra Madre recommending to the City Council the adoption of the commercial zone uses list to be maintained by the Director of Planning and Community Preservation.
Thank you, Chair. What I'm going to be doing is going through quickly some of the excerpts that were provided by the Planning Commission at our last meeting. So let me share my screen and get this up. And under 17.08, these these are recommended for this evening for Planning Commission consideration regarding the definition of bedroom in the R2 and R3 zone. And this is more or less pairing up with the parking code regulations and also potential changes to the design review permit requirements in terms of bedroom count. Since, especially in the parking code, we're omitting basically the number of bedrooms from the calculating parking requirements. So the proposal is just to strike out in both the R2 and R3 requirements for the purposes of calculating parking requirements. And we go straight to bedroom count. Anybody have any questions on that? And the same thing would occur for Chapter 17.20 in definitions under the one family residential zone.
Do we use bedroom for any other purpose? Because we could just take the whole definition out.
We do when we are counting, we'll say number of bedrooms, triggering number of parking spaces.
Right, but if we're not going to use bedrooms to trigger parking spaces, the question is whether we use bedroom for any purpose, for any other purpose. Because if we don't need the definition, and most people know what a bedroom is.
True.
So we really only need definition of words that we need to clarify beyond their standard meaning. And if it's not used for any particular purpose, then we don't need the definition. It's a good catch though, because we, as you said, we went to square footage. So I agree with the change. It's just whether we can make a bigger change and clean up a little better.
Well, we saw in one of our recent cases where there were two different rooms in the house. One was called, if I recall correctly, it's not material, but I think one was referred to as a den, and the other one was referred to as a recreation room. And they had to be kidding, because to look at them from a building code standpoint, they were both qualifying as bedrooms. And I'm really opposed to anything that is a duck and it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, but you try to label it as something else. So I might want to take out the family or recreation room thing here. If it's going to unnaturally reduce a bedroom count.
I think we should just take the bedroom definitions out completely. It's cleaner and it's less code to plow through when you're trying to find the important stuff.
I don't think these definitions change what constitutes a bedroom. I think it's only for the parking purposes what constitutes a bedroom, and we've already moved over to square footage, so we call it whatever you want it. If it's the square footage is the tail that wags the dog, and not what you call the room.
Yeah, I just did a search online, and we use in the zoning code where these definitions are used, they're just used for parking. So we can just delete all three of these definitions. We don't need them. I think that's a very good suggestion.
Well, one looks like it's totally struck out anyway.
Well, I just struck them out.
Oh, you're doing it as we speak.
Yeah. So continuing on to the changes from our last commission meeting on this topic, which was August 20th. These were the changes from that meeting. So this is where the square footage counts changed. The red was the original, and then the modification that was offered by the commission at the meeting. So these are permitted uses by conditional use permit, permitted and minor conditional use permit requirements.
We don't need to do that. Okay, can you scroll up, Vincent?
Yeah.
The 2500, 2001 stuff, we don't need that. We can just leave it as it was, because we have a provision at the lead in that talks about that. Let me see if I can find it. In section 1736.020, it says the required permit for some uses varies based on the amount of floor area occupied by such use. The number in the tables represents the square footage. If a use occupies exactly the threshold amount of the floor area, the lower permit shall be required. For example, a retail store with 2,500 square feet of floor area would be permitted, and one with exactly 5,000 square feet would require a minor conditional use permit. So we don't need to do the change to the one, because that just adds new ambiguity in case somebody's square footage was 2,500 and a half.
Okay.
So I think it was fine the way it was.
So that would be true for the remaining edits that we're looking at. So we'll just go ahead and put that back.
Okay.
Anybody who's making an application can tweak a number to go this way or that way, and you'll never catch it anyway.
No, it's just us lawyers that fret about that 1 square foot.
No.
So we'll go ahead and correct that. Those were the only changes. So here we are looking at, this is B under the same section, and these were the changes that were made at that last meeting.
So this is Alex. No, I'm unmuted. These are Alex's suggestion based on the discussion we had about meeting state law with delegation, right?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, I'm good with these changes. I think they work really well.
Okay. And then he had.
Yeah, I'd endorse that also, Vincent.
Okay. And this was another one of those changes.
Right. This was an issue that we didn't know how state law worked, and I think this is an elegant solution of just saying we apply state law. So that's great.
All right.
Staff made one addition to the commercial zone uses by categories. This is the independent list that's maintained by staff. We just added coffee and tea shops since we had so many of them for clarity. Because many times when an applicant comes to the front counter when we are open, they'll ask or they'll let us know that they want to open up a tea room or a coffee shop. We didn't have that on the list before. And then we can't really point to anything. So I think this would be a little bit more helpful if we were able to introduce that item. And I believe we took out this one edit here, and this was under service establishments general, striking out small animal, including incidental boarding. We have that as a CUP. Under the heading of service establishments.
Yep, that was for noise.
Yeah.
Under health clubs or centers, exercise gymnasiums, are we in the right section right now?
We did not include that one in this one. That would be in your packet. And that was not, we didn't make a change to that one. So you can go ahead and verbally state your comment.
I was referring, I think, to the subsection below that.
So service, okay,
Yeah.
service establishments general.
All right. Can I
Sure.
ask for a correction
Yes.
on one item here? You know, you see the item that starts off as health clubs.
Yes.
I think, given some of our past experience here, that we should also include dance in there.
So
Dance. Yeah.
Some of the people that have
dance would be
come
here.
before us.
We have that under the classification of educational facilities.
How would that affect where they can go and where they can't go as of right? Because you know, like we've had the issue before. We've had the issue before of people having difficulty getting like a kids dance studio into one of the commercial spaces along the boulevard, and it essentially came down to, well, they're using the same kind of space. They're trying to get into the same kind of space as gymnasiums, fitness studios, Pilates, everything else would want to be in, and somehow we were excluded.
Yeah, Joe, under the list, it would allow them to go without a minor conditional use permit up to 5,000 instead of up to 2,500. So it's more accommodating for the dance studio.
Where is that, John? I'm sorry.
It's under, if you scroll down to educational facilities, general.
Well, I don't have the full list up on screen. So
Okay, well, it includes barber and beauty colleges, business schools, dancing, art, music, and similar training schools, professional vocational schools. So those are permitted up to 5,000 square feet.
right.
All right. So actually, they're actually in a more liberal kind of situation than we have here in this listing, right?
Right.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Good.
So those were all the changes that
Just didn't want them to be singled out as having difficulty. So
these are
John,
the-
you're
these are the
telling me
balance
that
these are the balance of the changes that we had for this. So these are the only changes that we,
Yes.
great.
Yeah.
so
Okay.
where is the section that John was referring to just a minute ago?
It wasn't.
If
it
you
wasn't
look on the
part of
staff
changes.
packet, Joe, it's on page 119.
Just not up on the screen right now.
Not up on the screen, right?
Okay, thanks.
All right, so then with those changes, we now have the balance of changes, and this code, as the Planning Commission has input it, is ready to go to council. Is that right, Vincent?
That is correct. What we are doing this evening is forwarding the recommendation to the city council to approve two resolutions, actually. So the first resolution, 2011, is regarding the municipal code text amendment. And resolution 2012 is the commercial zone use list.
All right, is there any deliberation from the commission?
Chair, before we deliberate on the public hearing, we should take public comment, or at least provide the opportunity for that.
Thank you. If we can get the number up on the screen. At this time, any person may address the Planning Commission concerning this specific item. We welcome your participation. When addressing the commission, please begin by providing your name and address for the record. Again, comment must be confined to this particular item. And we'll give you a minute here to call in case you want to comment.
Chair, it does not appear you have any callers for public comment on this item.
All right. We would welcome you interrupting us if anybody does call it. With that, we can bring it back to the commission for discussion. Any commissioners have any comments about this?
I think we've been working on this a while, so I think we've probably exhausted it.
I would be fine to move that we approve it and send it up to the council right now. I don't know what else we have to say about it.
Before we take that motion, is there anybody who wanted?
Yeah, I have a comment I'd like to make. First, I'd like to say I think all the changes that staff suggested that we discussed are great, and I think those are positive adds. There's one further change I'd like to make, and that's in, when we started on this, we changed some in chapter 1760 to take out some of the long list of uses like dumps and whatnot that didn't make sense. We also updated the minor conditional use permit language so that it works in a non-residential setting. Those are all important changes. But while we were there, we also cleaned up a couple of nits in the design review permit findings on section 1760.041. And that we did all that before SB 330, and also not knowing that there was going to be a revision to that, a potential revision to that section that was going to follow close on its heels. So I think it would be better for us to not make those few minor changes of a cleanup nature that we're suggesting here on chapter, in section 1760.041 on page 105 of the staff packet, and just leave those for the next set of comments that we're bringing through.
We will reinstate the original language from 17.60.041.
Great catch. Thank you, Commissioner Hutt. Any other comments? All right, I will entertain a motion to approve these two with the edits that have all been proposed and generally accepted by the commission.
Also moved.
Very much. I will second then.
With all the work, you should third it as well.
Good with
All
that.
right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously. Send that up.
All right.
Right.
All right, next on the docket
Parking.
is consideration of Planning Commission Resolution 20-13, a resolution recommending to the City Council the adoption of an ordinance amending Chapter 17.68 parking of Title 17 zoning of the Sierra Madre Municipal Code. Director Gonzalez.
So we didn't note any specific changes from the last meeting, which we did not have any corrections. So if the commission wishes, they can go ahead and take action on approving the amendments to Chapter 17.68 parking.
All right, before we deliberate, I will once again call for community input. At this time, any person may address the Planning Commission concerning this specific item on the agenda. We welcome your participation. When addressing the commission, please begin by providing your name and address for the record. And we will just give the public a minute to call in here.
Chair, it does not appear you have any callers for public comment on this item.
All right, thank you. Again, we welcome you interrupting us if somebody does call in while we're discussing this. I will bring this back to the commission. Does the commission have any comments about this particular item?
I was discussing diagonal parking with some people from another city, and they were considering having diagonal parking where people back in as opposed to go in front. Because the problem with going in forward is when you have to back out, you cannot see who's coming down the street. Interesting. But that's up to the city to implement, not us to put in code.
So all of the
You have to
diagonal
reverse the angle to be able to back in.
Right.
But you'd pull up and back in, and then you. So we could put ourselves on the map, huh?
They've got that in front of Beantown.
Yeah.
All right. Any other comments from the commission with regards to this particular amendment? Hearing none, I will ask for a motion.
Also move.
I will second.
All right, we have a motion on and a second on resolution 2013 for parking. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. 2 out of 3 sent to the council. Next up is consideration of Planning Commission Resolution 20-14, a resolution recommending to the City Council the adoption of an ordinance amending subsection 17.60.041 Delta findings of section 17.60.041 design review permit of chapter 17.60 variances and discretionary permits of Title 17 zoning of the Sierra Madre Municipal Code. My understanding is at this time, we are not prepared to act on this. And so we need a motion to hold it over to the next meeting. Is that right?
We could continue the public hearing to September 17th. And also we were going to hear from a brief update from the subcommittee.
That would be on the next agenda item, right? That's not on this?
No, it's on this agenda item as well. So both for design review as well as the last item would be design review thresholds.
Okay, I can give an update on that. I think, maybe at the next meeting we could combine these, because I think the way the Planning Commission was talking, and certainly the way the subcommission is considering these, is this is really a whole package that's trying to accomplish what we're after. And I can say that the subcommittee made substantial progress. We had numerous emails, lots of calls. We've got a couple of drafts we've traded, and we certainly can have a draft to staff for review next week, and wanted to figure out what staff is interested, what's our deadline on getting that to staff for next week, so we'll make sure and get that to you on time. And I don't think we have any substantive questions right now, because I think it makes sense to look at all this in totality. But one just sort of scope comment or question that is raised in the staff packet is the thresholds with regard to R2 and the hillside zone. Given the tight timeline on this and the amount of work that's especially needed in R2, we didn't look at that, and we really focused on the R1 code and the design guidelines themselves, design findings, and then some of the development standards that generally apply. And I wanted to just make sure that really makes sense for the where the commission is thinking, so that we could get all that stuff done and up to the council on the timeline they've requested, and then we can come back later and look at R2 and the hillside zone.
So I have a question for council. Will that comply with the needs of Senate Bill 330?
So the question is, if we don't amend the R2,
Correct.
is that going to cause an issue with Senate Bill 330? That's the question.
Right, because we'd have two standards, wouldn't we? One for R1 and one for others?
Well, R2 wouldn't have a standard, right? Because there is no, am I wrong? There are no design review
Correct.
findings
There's no
for
design
R2.
review requirement for R2.
Yeah,
So-
just to clarify, what we're talking about is the thresholds that send you to the design review process and require a design review permit. So we're not having different design standards in different areas. We're just saying there's different triggers. And we've had different triggers in different codes because they have different sensitivities. So I don't think that is a problem, at least in the short run, but certainly we should make sure that the thresholds in R2 and the hillside are where we want them to be.
What we've been asked to do in terms of simplifying or easing some of the requirements here, they go beyond what's being asked for in Senate Bill 330, and it's on us to do due diligence, providing simplification where we can. So I don't see this as particularly being an issue right now.
Great. So then, Vincent, do you have a timeline when you need these from the subcommittee?
So we said that they were going to be due before the commission for October 1st. So we definitely were going to hold the public hearing on October 1st. If we could get it done earlier or sooner, if we wanted to review any component of that for our next meeting of September 17th, then I would need to have the document basically on Wednesday before the week before a Wednesday. So all I'm going to do is reference it as an attachment, the subcommittee report as an attachment, and I'll just reference that in the staff report. So it can come in just the day before I send out the packet, or the morning of, which would be next Thursday.
So we should aim for getting you the packet by end of day the 9th, so that you can incorporate it on the 10th and get it out in the packet. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
John, is that doable?
I should take off mute. Yeah, I think that's doable. Also, we can try to get you maybe a couple of days ahead some of the code revisions so you can take a look at those to make sure. And I know that Alex said he wanted to review those. And then we might prepare a memo explaining our rationale and reasoning, and that might follow a day or two later. But definitely we can get you all that stuff by Thursday morning.
Okay,
That's a week from today.
that's
That's a week.
A week from last night, I think is what we said.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
But Joe, it'd be good if we could get
The long weekend, Tom.
shelves on Tuesday, so that Alex can have a chance to look at them, and if there's any questions, ping us back, and so we can, think about how to revise those.
Yeah. Yeah. I think once we've really got the entire conceptual framework perfectly clear, that it will be easier to slot in some of the R2 and R3 issues here. So I'm not too worried about that.
All right, then it sounds like we are looking for a motion to continue the public hearing on Commission Resolution 20-14 to the September
17th.
17th meeting.
Also move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Bill's shaking his head, so I'm going to take that as an aye as well. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Okay.
So it sounds like the next item was the discussion, if there was to be any, to design review thresholds. Commissioner Hutt, you'd mentioned that you don't have any substantive questions from the subcommittee at this time. Should we wait for the next meeting to really get into this conversation when we've seen something to react to?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I just want to make sure that we have direction from the full commission to not deal with R2 and Hillside now, and we can take those up later once, as Joe said, we get the whole structure set up.
I'm fine with that. Anybody object to that on the commission?
No.
Okay.
And I think we're good to go.
Okay.
Vincent, did you have something?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I want to commend staff on the analysis about the numbers of square footage and parcel sizes that they did. It was very helpful to figure out how big this problem is and who we're dealing with, and that was very helpful.
Yes, that was prepared by Assistant Planner Wolf.
Good job.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's exactly the kind of criteria that I think we've asked for a couple of times to help guide these decisions and understand the scope of the project that we're undertaking and how many people would be or wouldn't be affected. It's a very, very useful tool. Thank you very much to all staff. All right, I guess we are on to the next item, Planning Commission reports. Do any planning commissioners have any reports?
I have nothing.
All right, next. Director Gonzalez, Planning and Community Preservation Staff reports.
Just to let you know that at our next meeting on September 17th, we have our continued items. So both design review findings and design review thresholds are advertised as public hearings as we move forward.
Great. Thank you very much.
I have a quick report too, Chair.
Yes,
Yeah.
Deputy City Attorney.
So if you all remember, a couple of meetings ago, I had presented on, I think it was 5 Senate bills related to housing. And I don't know if you followed the news recently, but all 5 have failed. They failed to pass, and it was for a really interesting reason. So the reason I presented to you those 5 bills is because they sailed through the Senate. It was the Senate's housing package. It went to the Assembly. The Assembly amended it and passed it overwhelmingly too. So both the Senate and the Assembly passed it. However, the Assembly passed it 3 minutes before midnight.
Yes.
And then it went to the Senate, and the Senate didn't have enough time to just vote on the amendments that were made. they were going to approve it, but they couldn't do it in the 3 minutes they were given. And the hard deadline is the end of August, and they couldn't get the necessary votes done. And so all of those housing bills that they were working on all year all failed. It was like remarkable. We've never seen anything like it before.
Whatever it takes.
So anyway, this year there are basically no substantive housing changes. There are a couple that passed in the assembly. They're not that big a deal. But these will come up again next year, I'm sure. The Senate Leader Atkins, those are her bills and they all failed, so I'm sure she's going to bring it up again.
I've heard talk that they might do a special session to try to remedy that. Have you heard anything about that?
I haven't heard it. I haven't heard of that, no.
Yeah.
And Assistant City Attorney, question for you just for clarification. There was also one bill that allowed for use of vacant land or parking area for affordable housing on institutional uses, essentially church sites. That one also failed, and that was championed by Senator Wiener.
Yeah, that one also failed. Something similar got passed in the, I said the House, the Assembly. So something similar got passed in the Assembly, but that has to do with parking and housing. So I have to look into that one. But there's a religious land use bill that passed in the Assembly, but it was nowhere as extensive as the Senate bill version.
I would like to make one suggestion about these bills, and this has to do with our. I know you're grinning already. It's like I'm gonna torpedo something. I wasn't. You know how I feel about a lot of these laws, but some of the feedback that I get from members of the public there, and when talk about these bills starts going round robin, the public isn't always clear on whether the law is mandating something like building housing on church property, or it's just saying that your zoning needs to allow for it, right? And so I would like, just as a matter of service to the public, that we apparently we're talking enough in code here that there's members of the public that aren't really clear on whether this is just this kind of thing is just a zoning permission or it is a mandate. And it would really be good, just as a matter of public information on the part of our commission, if we could always be helpful to the public in that regard.
Sure. So just to clarify the point then, all the bills that were proposed were designed to limit the city's discretion with regards to housing applications. None of the bills actually required housing units to go up.
And that is the case with most of these, with most of these laws anyway. And
Right.
We probably can avoid some consternation on the part of our public if we did a better job educating in that regard. I'm not saying we're remiss. I'm just saying that we may need to be a little more proactive in terms of explaining to the public. Some people get really whooped up about this.
Yes, they do.
That's helpful feedback. Thank you, Commissioner Catalano. Anybody else have anything they would like to contribute? Well, at this time, I will adjourn our meeting till our next regular meeting in September 17th.
Goodbye.
Good night.
Everybody.